Today on Outside the Box Reviews, Giant Monster Mania. We're taking a look at the Bandai Tamashii Nations. What the hell? Alright then, so I guess today on Outside the Box Reviews, Giant Monster Mania, we're taking a look at the Bandai Tamashii Nations S.H.Figuarts Alien Baltan figure. So this is one of the first two figures, and I think this may have come out a little after Ultraman to be quite honest, in the brand new S.H.Figuarts Ultraman line. Or at least brand new when we're talking about the TV show and I guess movies maybe even eventually. I think the Figuarts line kind of picked up starting with the Ultraman manga, which kind of made a little sense because as far as I got into it, which hasn't been that far, there hasn't been anything giant yet. It's all been human-sized people in Ultra suits, so I thought maybe that kind of fit Figuarts better. But yeah, it looks like Ultra Act is done, and now we're going to be getting all of our Ultraman goodness in this line. I think my feelings with this probably echo a lot of other people who are collecting the Ultra Act line. Not particularly excited about having to go re-buy all these figures if I want them in this new scale, this new style. However, so far there seem to be a lot of positives to this new line, not the least of which is the fact that it seems like they are going heavy on the monsters, on the Ultra Kaiju, the villains of the shows, which hadn't been done since very early on in the Ultra Act line, and they were some of the figures that had the heftiest price tag on the secondary market, and I never picked any of them up because of that. Now, Baltan was done in the old Ultra Act line, and even though I can't give you a side-by-side comparison here, I will say I think people who own that old figure, despite the fact they'll be in two different scales, may kind of be happy that this is the version of Baltan they're getting here. I say this because this version, to me at least, seems very specific to the original appearance, episode 2 of the original Ultraman series, and I think that old Ultra Act one was more of the version of Baltan that I think showed up in episode 16, the second version of Baltan we see in the show, with the mirror nipples and all that stuff. So either way, it's kind of a different version of the character. So enough of me rattling on about this, let's go ahead and take a closer look. Sadly, Baltan doesn't come with any accessories. I really would have liked to have some kind of beam effect part that went into his claws, but we do get a pretty cool sculpt here. This is one of the reasons I know this is the original version of Baltan, is by the shape of the little vent here on top of his head. It kind of got taller and weirder looking in later versions. So this to me looks very classic. He has some great compound eyes with kind of a translucent bubble over top of them. A lot of great textures going on here as well. One thing I've noticed with these Figuarts figures is they are much more true to the suits from the TV show. Instead of trying to smooth everything out like the old Ultra Act and even some of the stuff we get in Monster Arts, this actually kind of embraces the rough texture of the foam rubber and whatever else these suits were made from. Everything kind of just has a more worn look to it. The paint kind of matches what was actually done on the show, instead of being this glossy recreation of what it would be like in a slicker, more modern era. And I think the head came out really good. We get these little globs down here at the bottom, some nice silvers, blacks, tans, all kinds of cool colors in there. The back continues on, similar design. We have kind of this pattern going down the back of the suit. You can see there's some wrinkles here around the neck where it kind of bunches up, and some wrinkles in other places just where it's kind of sagging. So this version doesn't have the reflector bit like I mentioned before from the second appearance, but we do get these kind of weird lumps here in the chest that go with the character. Once again, some cool asymmetrical shapes in there, just looking very kind of rough and natural. Shoulders are a bit big and bulky, and I must admit the elbow isn't exactly the most subtle piece. It seems like it's a completely different color than anything around it. It should have kind of continued on that blue to hide it a little better, but it's not that bad, and some of the other joints are hidden really well. And then we get this fade from kind of a reddish brown into the silver of the claw. The claw has some indentations here on the inner side. Each part has that, and the outside is smooth. There's no real detailing on the inside of the claw, it's just more silver, and then you can see kind of the blue nub of his hand inside there. Down here at the waist, we get kind of the weird patterning that we see a lot with Ultraman, at least the original series. It looks more like clothing from the 60s than it does actual, like, skin patterns on an alien, but it's kind of part of the charm of the series to me. And then we get something I don't really expect very often on figures like this. They really seem to shy away from it in other Figuarts I've owned, but we do get some softer rubber bits around his waist. This kind of tail thing that he has, which is nicely detailed. We kind of have this armor section here on either side and this separate piece in the middle that's really more fin tail looking. But all three of these pieces are a soft rubber to help with articulation, which is kind of nice. The legs are pretty bland. They're really, I think they were just pants, so there's nothing really going on here. Though it does kind of bunch up here around the ankle, which you would kind of expect. And then we have the big alien boots, the very long toes on here. It's actually kind of dirtied up, and I like that look, like he's been stomping around in a dirty set all day. The toes curve up at the front, and the feet are very flat on the bottom, but that really helps with posing, I think. For articulation, I do wish it was a little better, but it's not horrible considering the design of the alien. The head is really the most hindered part. You can go a little bit up, pretty much just straight forward with maybe a slight incline on it. You can go a fair amount down with it. You can't really move it side to side. It's hindered almost immediately by this neck piece hitting the rest of the plastic. So that's a bit of a bummer. You can get a little tilt out of it as well, though. That's not too bad. The shoulders are on dual ball joints. So you actually have this armpit joint where you can move forward, back, and up and down with it. And the arm itself will move forward, back, as well as out to the side very easily. Great range of motion. There's a upper bicep swivel, which is really nicely hidden within the sculpt. I have to appreciate that. The elbow is a double joint, so it has a really good range of motion there. As I showed earlier, the claws are just on hinges. They don't open super far, but they open enough. There's dual ball joints here in the torso, so you can lean pretty far back as well as pretty far forward. You can rock side to side, and you can rotate. You are eventually hindered in the rotation just by the shapes of everything, but you can get a really good range of motion out of his torso. The legs will go forward, a little bit back. They are hindered a bit by all this stuff behind him, but it is rubber, so you can kind of push it out of the way. You also go out to the side, once again a little hindered because of that piece there, but the rubber helps. You can rotate at the upper leg, not a lot of motion there, but some. You do get a double joint at the knee. We get a swivel here at the upper ankle, and then below that we actually have a nice ball joint so we can go a little forward and back, as well as have an ankle rocker in there to get even more dynamic poses. For a size comparison, here is Baltan next to the 1964 Godzilla from S.H. Monster Arts. You can see Baltan does stand a good bit taller than Godzilla here. And then there on the right is the NECA Godzilla 1954, who does dwarf Baltan. But actually, they seem to be in better scale with one another than Baltan is with the Monster Arts. Granted, 64 is the shortest Monster Arts ever, at least for a full-grown Godzilla. But looking at the shoulder height, which is really the thing to go by when you're looking at characters in suits, you can see it would be a person of about the same height in either suit here with Godzilla and Baltan. And here's Baltan next to the two different Ultraman figures from Bandai Tamashii Nations. On the left is the older Ultra Act Ultraman. This is the renewal version. And then here on the right is the new S.H.Figuarts version, which obviously is in scale with Baltan. The other Ultraman is very much too tall compared to Baltan. My guess, not having one in hand, is that the old version of Baltan would be about the same height as the old Ultraman figure. And I think when it comes to monsters, it may not look so weird if you did have the old Baltan to mix it in with this new line. So overall, I am going to give Baltan a fairly strong recommend. I really like him as a figure. I think the detailing is great. I like the paint. I like the sculpt on him. The articulation's pretty good. If his head moved a little better and he came with a beam accessory, this thing would be absolutely phenomenal. As it is, though, it sits as a very, very strong piece and has me very excited that we're getting more Ultra Kaiju in this line. So far, we've seen reveals not just from Ultraman, but from Ultra 7, and that has me very, very excited, and I hope they continue to go strong with the Kaiju in this line. It's Ultraman! Alright, well I guess next time we'll be taking a look at the S.H.Figuarts Ultraman uninterrupted. But until then, make sure you follow me on Instagram, username Outside the Box Reviews. Also check me out on Facebook, link below. Make sure you like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time, it's another Outside the Box Review, Giant Monster Mania. Stay tuned for more to come.